Buonasera amici e benvenuti. Thank you for coming. I am Linfadusa, and I have been an inhabitant of these wondrous hills since the great, generous Atlas crowned them with such grand, lofty towers. No, I'm just kidding. My name is Leonora Bernardi, poet and playwright. Oh, clearest fountains, you that bring life to the fields of Tuscany, of the great Granduca Ferdinando. The muses will happily come to this villa and to these gardens to live by your soft, graceful murmuring. They will sing the true praises of the great demigods with noble and resounding voices. They will sing of the wise Granduchessa Christine, of her piety, her valor, her courtesy, all of which, like a flaming sun, adorn her with spectacular rays. And they will see and hear a little play that I have written called Clorilli. I am very happy to present it to you now. But what are these unhappy events that I foresee? In such a happy, such a joyous age, will they really take place in these woods? And if the golden age does shine today, why then will it not shine here? Ah, now I understand. Love is the reason. That cruel tyrant who encircles the souls of others as he so pleases with torment and sorrow. Love is a blind little boy who, taking the bridle of reason from others, all too often sees miserable lovers to ruin and death. And you will see him reigning mercilessly tonight over the noblest shepherd of these woods. You will see the hills cry out with fiery sighs of bitter lament, and you will see new streams of tears drench the grass, gushing from the eyes of lovers. But I will also announce to you that all of these sufferings will come to a happy end, for I do not want to trouble, not even with the smallest cloud, the great light of shining hope. No, no, no. I, with all of my power, will take the nymphs and the shepherds' sad, unfortunate stories and make them happy ones. I will lift the sadness from afflicted hearts. Instead of sorrowful sighs and laments, I will make the hills and the countryside sing with happy voices and ring out with the sweetest and most lovely sounds. Allora, on with our play. Avanti con lo spettacolo. Please, follow me to the gardens.
I'm sorry I cannot teletransport you to the gardens of Villa La Pietra in Florence, where she was inviting you to go. But I'm just welcoming you here tonight to Casa Italiana Zerilli-marimò. We are delighted to host this event because of a variety of reasons. First of all, because it gives us a chance to share with you what we have in Florence, and it sort of cements and furthers the collaboration between the home campus here in New York and our campus in Florence. Many of you probably don't know that NYU received in 1994 the greatest gift ever received by an American university from Sir Harold Acton. And that's Villa La Pietra, as we call it, but as a matter of fact, there are 5 villas on about 27 acres of property that includes formal gardens, olive groves, and many other beautiful things. And some of our students had the fortune to study there. And some of our students are also smart enough to want to study things that are related to that place while they're there. And tonight you're going to see a mixture of video, of on-stage representation, and of scholarly discussion. And I'm very fortunate to have here with me two dear colleagues who are authorities, each one in their own field, that are going to guide us through this process of discovery of Clorilli, of this pastoral drama. And the first one I would like to introduce to you is a professor of Italian studies here in the department that is housed in Casa Italiana. She was for 3 years the academic director of NYU in Florence, 2 years, and where she witnessed the birth of this representation. And first and foremost, she is the world authority on women writers in the Renaissance. Virginia Cox has published extensively, translated, curated, edited, and that on top of many other fields of research and subfields of research within Renaissance and early modern Italian studies. And I just want to remind you that thanks to Virginia, we were able to perform here on our very stage on occasion of the Serenissima Festival organized by Carnegie Hall, a dialogue, philosophical dialogue called The Merit of Women, The Worth of Women, by Moderata Fonte, that is considered like a proto-feminist dialogue. And we gave to this dialogue that Virginia found, edited, translated into English, its first theatrical representation. And now we're trying to let it move around. So for this, I thank Virginia, and I would like to ask you to please welcome Professor Cox very warmly. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Stefano. So I'm going to keep the scholarly bit, which is my task, for this evening as short as possible, because I know you're all looking forward to getting on to the more fun bit. Oh. Oh, I think it's come back on. Yeah. But I'd just like to say it's really wonderful to be here to kind of revisit and remember what was an extraordinarily kind of magical evening last May in Florence at La Pietra, where the performers were assembled here to talk about the first ever modern performance of a recently discovered play by a virtually unknown female playwright of the Italian Renaissance, where this performance took place. So I'm not going to say anything about the performance itself, since that task falls to our next speaker, my colleague Eric Nicholson of NYU Florence, who is he was the director of this performance. He's a great scholar of Renaissance theatre, an artistically inspired and very historically attuned director, and also, as I discovered last year, an extremely convincing and pinpoint accurate impersonator of ancient shepherds. We may have a chance to see him in action this evening. So my task instead is just to say a very little about the playwright herself, Leonora Bernardi. Until very recently, I would say 9 years ago probably, there was actually very little to say indeed. She was one of those very kind of thin, elusive, almost kind of ghost-like figures within Italian literary history. Here's a little summary of what was known of Leonora Bernardi down to around 2010. This is the result of various kind of local historians in the 18th and 19th century who rooted out these facts. So she was born and lived part of her life in Lucca. Her husband came from the Garfagnana, the red dot further up is indicating his birthplace. I think probably the single most interesting and distinctive fact about this, which shows her kind of silver spoon background, is the fact that her godfather was none other than the Grand Duke of Florence, Francesco I de' Medici, and she in fact spent quite a bit of time at the Medici court. But apart from those very bare facts about her life and a few published poems of hers which survive in anthologies and which are kind of so good that you always wanted to know more about her, The only thing that was known about her, oh, actually a couple of things. It was known that she was a singer as well as a poet, and there's kind of contemporary testimonials to what a wonderful singer she was. She was also, and contemporary texts give us tantalizing clues about this, she was also clearly a playwright who wrote pastoral plays. And I'm showing you the most tantalizing fragment that we had to indicate the nature of her output, her dramatic output. This fragment from a biography of a Ferrarese poet, which says she also dared to compose a pastoral play in which she defends her own sex against those poets who seek a cheap glory through writing abusively about women. So very intriguing. She seems to have written a pastoral play which also has some kind of feminist or proto-feminist content. So that's down to 2010, and that was the year, or it might have been late 2009, when a close colleague and friend of mine at UCL and a great scholar of pastoral drama, Lisa Sampson, came across in the Marciana Library in Venice this mysterious text, pastoral tragicomedy by the Signora something clearly in code, a Lucchese gentlewoman. So very intriguing. So intriguing. This was very inconvenient for me. At the time I heard this fact, I had just finished writing a long tome about women's writing in counter-Reformation Italy. It had actually gone to readers at the press, and I had to kind of take my spring break, rush over to Venice and speed read this so I could incorporate it in my work. Anyway, while I was over in Venice, I did what will probably be the only piece of literary code cracking in my entire career, sadly. And I interpreted this actually very simple code, I have to say, as Leonora Belatti, so her married name. And we've since come across various kind of clues that indicate that this is indeed a work by her, one of these lost plays by her. So since that time, Lisa Sampson, who's the London-based scholar, Anna Wainwright, who you'll meet later this evening, and I have been working on and off, when we find time, on this text. We've transcribed it, Anna has translated it, and we're kind of working on the notes and the introduction. And in the process, we've done quite a bit of work on her biography, and we have found quite a few sources which have kind of added to our knowledge of her life. Most fascinatingly, we found this cache of letters, quite a lot of them, in the main library in Siena, from a letterato in Lucca called Domenico Cannalire to a Sienese letterato. They go over quite a period of years, and they give a really detailed, almost kind of weekly bulletin on the doings of Leonora Bernardi, who Cannalire was clearly very fascinated by. We can get a sense of how fascinated by this quote, that this is near the beginning of their acquaintance. There is currently in the city a gentlewoman of Lucca, Leonora Bernardi Belatti, who is young, beautiful, and marvelously talented, or virtuous. This is this word virtuosa. It's always hard to know how to translate it. She is a sun in her beauty, a Minerva in her learning, and a Thalia in her grace. He's completely besotted. So using these letters and some other documents that we've found, we've managed to flesh out her biography a little bit and discovered some very fascinating facts along the way. We discovered rather melodramatically that her widowhood in 1585 began precisely on Christmas Day of that year, when her husband was assassinated in the ducal courtyard. I think that's going to feature in the biopic of her life, certainly. And we also found very sadly that she finished her life, she went blind towards the end of her life, and she finished her life rather a kind of saintly religious recluse. I suppose I shouldn't really say that's sad, should I? It was her choice. Anyway, so I suppose this would be probably how she ended her life, but how I would like you to think of her maybe when we're thinking about this play is something more like this. This is Lavinia Fontana, the first professional female painter at this time. Her self-portrait as a very kind of self-confident and self-possessed creative woman in her studiolo. She's a painter, but she's portrayed in front of a book here, clearly literate and clearly very well educated. And I think that helps to remind us that Leonora Bernardi was living at a time of extraordinary creative flowering of female talent in Italy. So we're not just looking at poets like Leonora, we're also looking at painters and musicians and actresses. One of Eric Nicholson's great research focuses is the Commedia dell'arte and the very famous actress Isabella Andreini, who was active at this time. So I'll maybe leave you with one last image of our Leonora Bernardi, Elia Nichols, a friend of Eric's, who very kindly, she's a professional actress, contributed to the performance, and I'll leave the stage to Eric.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Virginia. Mille grazie. Certainly not enough to express my gratitude to you and to everyone for being here this evening. I'd also like to thank, of course, Stefano Albertini. In fact, I'm going to keep my comments very short and sweet so you can really let our clips, you could say our teasers from last year's production performance speak for themselves. But I really want to thank Stefano Albertini again for making this possible, Virginia for making the project at all possible, and you're inviting me, and so many other people. It's been a real pleasure to be back here at NYU, working with Julian Sachs, Kosia, all the wonderful staff here, students, great to see former students of mine again, and thank you, one and all, really heartfelt appreciation. And what Stefano said, I think is so important, that we love to cultivate this relationship and strengthen the bridge between the Casa Italiana, Italian Studies at NYU, and Villa La Pietra for future projects. It was mentioned Moderato Fonte's wonderful Merito delle Donne, and look for that in the future. We're going to increase this is really our objective. So thank you, all of you, for your support. Many other people to thank, and you know who you are, but many of them will appear in the documentary that will begin tonight's real fun section, introducing you to the production of Clorilli as it was done last May at La Pietra, with a wonderful cast, some of whom have generously come back, and you'll see them also live tonight. But you also see clips of them in the first primo piatto, you could say. It's more than an antipasto. The primo piatto, and I want to recognize the extraordinarily talented Gabriel Goh, who's here with us tonight, who really made, conceived of, offered, volunteered to do this documentary, helped by also another man I want to acknowledge and thank, Domenico Cannalire, who is the technical video producer, you can say, and technician at La Pietra, and they made this documentary possible. So we'll begin with about 20 minutes of this short subject, which will introduce you to many other people involved in the production. I was very fortunate to have people from Gallatin School, also of individualized study, Ellie New in particular, who was the assistant director, who can't be here, I think, tonight, but you'll see her as well. And, just, as I say, a range of wonderful talent that really, I think, brought out the best of both NYU in New York and NYU Florence. So then the documentary will be followed by one scene performed live. Please pay close attention to this. Then a clip of about 18-20 minutes, including Elia Nichols in another role. You'll see, I won't give all that away. Finally, after that segment of the dress rehearsal is what you'll see, actually not the actual performance, but a dress rehearsal where we had professional photographers. The sequence of live scenes that will conclude the glimpses of Clorilli, followed by a discussion, a question and answer, where we're very pleased to have Anna Wainwright, our wonderful translator of this, who will will be talking about the future, the ongoing life of Clorilli. And finally, before I forget, we were very, very fortunate to have Cameron Anderson, professor at Brandeis University of Theatre Arts and a professional scenic designer who's working on a major production right now at South Coast Repertory in California. Can't be with us. You'll hear her in the interview, but Cameron did some extraordinary design work. And pay close attention as you watch the video clips to the projections that really are her creation, that are in the background on this hedge in the marvelous, beautiful gardens of La Pietra. It was a magical night, and I hope this one will be as well for you. So thanks once again, and yeah, please, Julian, enjoy the documentary and the rest. Thank you so much.
Nonostante, I shall respond to your question.
Take care of yourselves tonight. Take care of your voices. Be careful of slippery grass.
Cry out with a fiery sigh.
I like Clorilli because she's really strong and independent. And there's shocking parallels to a lot of the women you see written today. I just think that's a testament to the women's movement. So yeah.
Exact timing, did you want the petals when Bernardi speaks a prologue, or maybe earlier?
Maybe during the song.
Yes, good morning. I'm Eric Nicholson, and I am a professor here in the Liberal Studies program at New York University, Florence.
Told me great things about Cristila and Dinando.
And Professors Cox, Sampson, and Wainwright are putting together this edition of this previously lost play that existed only in manuscript, and nobody had seen it, in fact, until Professor Sampson rediscovered it in the Marciana Library of Venice about 8 years ago. And she, along with Professors Cox and especially Professor Wainwright, have been translating it and seeking a venue for producing it.
Clorilli in particular is given distinct visibility. She appears in 1/3 of the scenes, 10, the second most of any character. She's the only lover to appear across the two parts of the play. Clorilli demonstrates mastery in verbal wit and irony through her sparring, her contrasti, her experience of regaining, as she puts it, her original liberty.
My name's Marina Schumacher, and I'm playing Clorilli. It's a proto-feminist pastoral play that centers around the lives of two groups of lovers.
Che bella canzone. Buonasera amici e benvenuti. Thank you for coming. I am Linfadusa, and I have been an inhabitant of these wondrous hills since the great, generous Atlas crowned them with such grand, lofty towers. No, I'm just kidding. My name is Leonora Bernardi, poet and playwright.
I'll be talking about the life of the author, Leonora Bernardi, who wrote the recently discovered pastoral play that we're celebrating in this workshop. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Leonora Bernardi's life. It's not literally true that Bernardi was unknown before the discovery of the play we're talking about this evening, but I think it's fair to say that she was very little known indeed. When she first came onto my radar in the late 1990s, as one of the earliest women writers to have written a secular play, a lost pastoral drama, lost at the time, she seems to have set herself up as an important cultural figure in Lucca.
Actually, if you move around it, like stage right, cross, yeah. No, it's better, yeah. Well, just try to stay in that plane where Miranda is, or Luz Miranda is, yeah, don't come too far forward. And anyway, the audience will be here anyway, so you ought to stay.
I think it's really important to see the works of feminist writers, especially back in the Renaissance, during the Counter-Reformation, post-Counter-Reformation.
Staging this play itself was an act of research and understanding of the conditions, the phenomenon, you might say, of pastoral drama and its production and performance in its social context at that time, and to explore in a research-based manner the coordination of the production of movements of the actors, the presence of the audience in a green space on a green lawn, and most particularly in this one, how you might say it, a square, an open courtyard lawn surrounded by hedges in the gardens near this green theatre.
Sì, ma 2 metri sarà sufficiente, sì, per arrivare anche all'altezza.
Qui c'è l'altezza del sotto.
Per arrivare, per non vedere dove diventa buio alla in basso vicino.
Contrastato con il sole di
May thirsty herds never disturb your tranquil wings. Instead, my Diana and her beautiful nymphs take refuge here from the blazing heat and bathe their limbs in your calm springs.
My name is Cameron Anderson. I teach at Brandeis University in the Theater Arts Department, and I'm a scenic and projections designer, and I work in New York and Boston, across the United States, and also abroad.
Yeah. So when you hear "She Flew Away From Me," that means you guys are going to move over in front of the fountain and pull this fabric kind of across, and we'll go through all of this.
One of the main ideas that's explored in pastoral drama is this notion of going into the natural world, or being brought out of the modern world and exploring this natural realm. And it was actually very self-conscious when the play was written, that the people of the court were imagining what life in the country was like.
I gave it no credence.
Well, although it is true that many dreams prove to be false, a good dream can predict the truth.
Yes, among thousands and thousands of dreams filled with lies and falsehoods.
It's becoming very popular to move productions outside of theaters and into found spaces, into warehouses, into spaces that bring specific meanings. So you'll often create a piece of theater in a space, particularly because that space carries a meaning. So you might do a production in a prison or in a graveyard or somewhere where the very ground that you're standing on brings meaning to the piece. This is all happening right in this moment. We are discovering these things for the first time, and problem solving. I mean, working outside just practically is so challenging in theater. If it rains, we have a backup plan. If we go here, we go there. The projector's going to get wet. There's so many things that can happen that we then sort of instantaneously have to shift gears.
Gardens of Villa La Pietra. The site was a natural, a perfect fit for this play that is set in the world of nature, and in fact, in some ways does concern the relationship of civilization with the natural world.
So, wonderful. Yeah. Any questions, concerns?
Time still at 6 tomorrow or earlier?
The call's at 6, yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow, yeah.
So we have like somewhat decent bottles of wine for.
You wanna start it? Sure. Wait, where are we going?
Hi, I'm Andrew Cohen. I played Foligno, and I was also an assistant producer for Clorilli.
I turned 17 when fate guided me to a place where, among many nymphs, there lived the most beautiful beings.
So my vision for the show as a producer, I mean, you know, we as producers, we kind of gather everything together and then let it build itself. So I don't know if I had a specific vision, but I definitely saw it as something that used the site and it used the naturally available resources at La Pietra to its advantage. And I think it couldn't have been done better in that aspect. I think the fact that you walked through the gardens, the fact that you saw the hills, you saw the fountains, you saw all these things that were there and were actually referenceable in the show. It was just absolutely amazing to take an audience on this journey, not just with us in an acting and a theatrical standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, to actually take them on a journey and to transport them back those 300, 400, 500 years that this play kind of tries to emulate that time period. So I definitely think that kind of vision was realized.
One thing I think is hard with this language is it's hard for us to express the emotions that are human in heightened language, if that makes sense.
Right.
itself is not necessarily particularly difficult in each of its individual parts. But when you put the individual parts together, you get this texture of music where you can hear the different voices illustrating the music in different kinds of ways.
Through his music, plants and flowers ever sprout, as sudden showers there had made a lasting spring.
But what you will hear is a single solo voice enacting a part. The accompaniment is provided by a semi-improvised ensemble who are following the rhythmic patterns of the singer, who has a lot of freedom because they don't have to keep in time with four other people who are singing at the same time. They're just singing their part, and you can hear in the voice of this person, the music is literally enacting the emotional experiences that the person is having.
Yeah, so this is setting out for an organ sound, right? Yeah. Because can we try harpsichord? Yeah, just like
holding hands with the other people, and that would be vaguely man, woman.
My name is Ellie New. I am the assistant director and choreographer of Clorilli. I think that one of the most interesting parts about Clorilli to me is this kind of proto-feminist movement that it was born out of, and the fact that the playwright is a female, which was unusual at the time. And you can really see reflected in the characters of Clorilli and Lucca and even Armilla and some of the other female characters of the play, this interest in how women are supposed to act versus how they naturally act.
Okay.
Yeah. You can like watch some videos. Sometimes they'll like take the scarf, like if the scarf is in my hand like this, they'll like put it around their neck, which is really pretty. Okay. You can like do whatever feels right for Clorilli. Well, I was really excited to see the play the first time that we rehearsed in the gardens all together. That I think was a really big turning point for the cast and for the crew as well. We had a lot of really interesting work that we did in classrooms and even working outside a little bit in the amphitheater here on campus, but once you enter the gardens and you kind of place the scenes in these spaces, they really come alive.
Remember, Italian dogs, they don't say bow wow, it's bow bow, right? It's bow bow. It's just Italian roosters, they don't say cock-a-doodle-doo, they keekity-kee. So, animals speak different languages too. So,
courteous minister of the sacred temple showed us the sacred order to the holy sacrifice. And with what great piety. My makeup is done by Julia Vialone, the makeup artist in the show. She did a great job. Since I play a 70-year-old man and I'm 19 years old, I had to look older. My name is Maurice Ben-Simeon. I play the character of Alfizibeo.
Although dreams can often be false, a good dream can predict the truth.
Yes, but among thousands and thousands of dreams filled with lies and falsehoods, you will scarcely ever find a single true one.
And what I think about my character in the show, it's interesting because although he's not a large part, he's like the father of like the main character, and he opens the show with like the tone that he misses his son. So he kind of sets the tone for the whole show of like the story of why, like he sets the tone for this entire show basically. So that's what I think of my character in the show, and that's why it's cool.
Good job.
Yeah.
Good energy, yeah.
Right,
It's a little fuzzy at the end, but you focused, yeah, you kept it going. It was good.
I can't break
you were really concentrated. It was a pleasure, Mike. Yeah.
So I'm Jeremy, and I play Filemone. It's incredibly exciting to be able to play this character because he's incredibly dynamic, he's incredibly almost bipolar in terms of how he's incredibly down and depressed and then incredibly up and excited about any even slight possibility of getting back with his lover.
How can it not awaken pity in your beautiful breast? Why does the sun of your eyes not rise brighter than ever before to greet these?
Bit of a confusing character because he's incredibly suicidal throughout the play and just becomes more and more so. Yet ends up pulling through at the end and becoming revived by his love, Clorilli.
Isn't this enough for you? Isn't it enough, even for someone so cruel like you, to have him tormented like this?
able to cause the death of one who lives. Hi, my name is Luzmina Crespo, and I play both Armila and Licosta. The way I got involved into the play was I heard about it at the very beginning of the school year, and I just really wanted to be a part of it because I am a drama major at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, and so I just wanted to keep the theater going on in my life.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5.
I think my favorite part of the process was actually the filming. Not because it was, it was amazing to have it filmed and filmed to the quality that it was, but I think just because that was the first time I got to see our entire cast come together and realize that we had put together a project, that we had actually worked on a piece of theater, and we had actually created something together.
We've come a long way, you guys. We created a piece that was very important for the age that it was.
No matter what play you're doing, you ask yourself, why are we doing this play now, right? Especially with opera or Shakespeare, when there have been multiple productions of it. I always say to myself, why do this Hamlet now? And you find the answer to that question, whether it's a political moment or, just a psychological state that you want to investigate in that moment. But those are the questions we're asking ourselves in order to make it meaningful to our audience.
Zefiro, Zefiro, Zefiro torna. Zefiro, Zefiro, Zefiro torna. Zefiro, Zefiro, Zefiro torna. Torna Zefiro, torna, torna, torna Zefiro, Zefiro torna. Vidi soavia gentila, va grato. Vidi soavia gentila, vai sciogli il dirigiò.
Thank you. And we're very happy and fortunate tonight to have with us the real maker of the documentary, Mr. Gabriel Goh. Please, Gabriel. Yeah, it's back there. Bravissimo, bravissimo, Gabriel. And thanks to everyone who contributed to that documentary. Unfortunately, Luzmina Crespo couldn't be here tonight. She's actually dress rehearsing 12th night with the Tisch School of the Arts. But she sends all her best wishes. And I also ought to acknowledge Maurice, who's with us tonight. Where are you, Maurice? But you'll see more of him in a moment, really, after this scene that we're about to do. I also want to acknowledge Marina Gonzalez, who played the character Aurinda, who unfortunately couldn't be here either. But really fabulous accomplishment, all of you. Thanks again. And now, without further ado, your first saggio, you could say, from the show, live. Before we go to a segment right after this, it'll segue continuously from the middle of the show, about, as I mentioned before, 18 minutes or so of the dress rehearsal performance. And the events will continue. So please, your full attention. Thank you so much. This is a scene where we meet Filemone with the older shepherd, Corribante, played by Jeremy Crocker, and someone who's not in the documentary, Ms. Rulan Chen. So, avanti, grazie.
Corribante told me that I should wait for her here, and that she would tell me what she had done with my nymph in my behalf. But I do not see her coming. Oh, I hope to God that her tardiness is not a sign of some evil hanging over me. Let not my hope she attempted to stir in this desperate breast of mine, be the cause of an even crueler death. Oh, but look. Oh, I see her from afar. Oh, she seems very happy. But for pity's sake, let her bring an end to my fierce pain.
Gentle Philemone, I greet you with good news that will put an end to your grief.
What? My dear nymph, very happy, perhaps. Tell me, I'm dying.
What do you speak of that? It is time for life, and for the most happy kind of life at that.
Oh, lucky me! Perhaps love's torches set her heart ablaze once more.
That I do not know, but I do know that Armilla said she would make happy after. And she believes that she can persuade her to listen to your words before the sun hides itself in the ocean.
Fleeting hope. Why do you steal away from unhappy lovers so quickly? And, Corbante, is this your happy news? Didn't I tell you that Armilla has tried in vain to get her to listen to me at least 1,000 times?
And how do you know that she will not succeed?
It is easier to gather breezes in a net, to enclose the sea within a little jar, than it is to change the stubborn will of a merciless nymph.
Everything yields in the end, with time. And I need to believe that your faithful service will bring some mercy.
My cruel, harsh destiny has left me without any hope of mercy.
Fate is always changing from sad to happy. You will have mercy yet.
And why should I hope? She bestowed her love on me, and now she denies me love. My cruel Clorilli.
And you also have love, which can be found in your beauty and constant reign.
Love does not dare allow his wings to approach her beautiful countenance, which, much like the brilliant sun, burns and consumes everything in sight.
And even the sun fuels the fire of love beyond his own ardor.
But do you know that in Clorilli's case, it is perhaps the flame that can be seen, and the frost that remains hidden?
Frost also disperses in the face of mighty heat.
Every great flame mellows the cold, chilly ice.
Then today will be the day that either Philemone will be deprived of love, or Clorilli will become a lover.
And why, Corbante?
Either frost will melt your fire, or your fire will melt your frost.
It shall not be either one or the other. For love does not allow for moderation before my beautiful sun. Either give me all frost, or all fire.
Andiamo. Andiamo, let's go, because at my old age, I'd rather go rest and eat than wandering around all day. Allora, andiamo, andiamo, andiamo amico, sì.
At last, Clorilli, you were nearly so late you would not have found me here. What took you so long?
Armilla appeared just when I caught up with the doe and killed it.
Ha, brava!
Yes. And once again, she delayed me with her idle chatter, much longer than was necessary. I wasn't able to pry myself away before I promised her all that she desired. Before I could come to you, my Lacosta.
Are you still being pursued by Armilla, who harasses you on behalf of that Philemone?
She follows me obstinately, and it seems as if this is only the start of it. In the end, to save myself more annoyance, I promised her I would speak with Philemone, but I swear to you it'll bring him so little joy that perhaps he will regret it.
They do nothing but irritate us, those men who love, or rather men who pretend to love. But to tell you the truth, my Clorilli, I prefer to flee from them as I have always done, for they are rare masters of untrue words, and they know how to disguise fraud as a lover so effectively that you would think it the very truth. First, they cover fraud's horrid, filthy face with a pale veil. Then they drape it amongst her shoulders in a pure mantle of tears. Oh! A necklace wraps around her throat, made of promises that seem to blow away on the wind. Poof! And around Fraud's brow can be a garland of flowers circling around the brow, circling that with lying sighs. And out of the inconstancy of their desires, they have extracted false promises from a false conch, 2 hollow pearls with the false names love and faith. Then they adorn her hands and arms with various gems, polished bracelets that have seemed to be given the names of enticing flattery, and on Fraud's forehead can be read the words, "To satisfy one's desires, all is permitted."
You speak the truth, Lacosta, for even with their eyes they cry, and their mouths they sigh. In their hearts they are laughing. And they already plot with these ministers of their mad desires to capture the noble prey of the hearts and souls of those simple and credulous nymphs, who are so ruled by their own foolish desire. No sooner will some unfortunate girl be taken in by their false images of love than they will quickly leave her, for they no longer respect her, and they will soon move their deceits in another direction. And they dare to call us inconstant and fickle.
The most unfaithful and fickle nymph would seem like constancy itself to comparison to even the most steadfast of shepherds. How the lovely Celia spoke on this subject. If I thought I wouldn't bore you, I would tell you the story.
You worry that you will bore me, but what can I possibly hear that would be as dear to me as denouncing this sex, which is so much our enemy? But who is this Celia? Can she be the one the Po River reveres and honors above all nymphs? She to make blessed Tuscan shores joined herself in matrimony with Albrano.
Yes, of course, of her I was speaking indeed, of the charming Celia. Celia, glory of love, prize of the world, in whose beautiful visage lies eternal spring, and who holds the gold of the stars in her hair. Celia, in whose honest gaze chaste love sparkles forth, and in whose noble breast noble piety resides. I don't know if you remember, when she left the proud rolling banks of the Po and brought happiness to the lovely Tuscany, when she left to dwell on that sea where Albrano has his noble lodging, stilling its waves with her fair sight.
How can you ask if I remember? The waters of the little Mugnone too were made clear when that beautiful image was reflected in them of this, I know not whether to call her nymph or goddess, when she trod the grass along its banks with her lovely foot as she made her way to the Arno.
There, beside the shore that bathes the Cinque Terre, I found her seated above the wild beach, with her lofty gaze so fixed upon the waves that she was not aware of me when I first arrived, though when she noticed me, she welcomed me most gladly. I asked her why she stared so intently onto the sea, and she graciously answered, I was looking out now at the shifting expanses of this our sea, and I was fashioning a parallel with the inconstancy and fickle faith of men. How calm does the ocean appear to us, how tranquil, how low and even are the waves, promising fair weather to sailors. Yet, if the wind god Aeolus releases even the mildest breeze from his hollow caverns, you will see that watery plain transform into mountains of waves. You will see that formerly tranquil aspect change into a cruel tempest, threatening war, open war to the miserable helmsman. Just so are men. While they keep their fickle thoughts hidden deep in the perfidious caverns of their horrid hearts, they will cast sweet, gentle looks upon you, O nymphs, in all mildness, breathing only peaceful semblances. But no sooner does a guileless nymph unfurl the sails of her fine desires upon this sea that seems so benign and calm, then, in an instant, unleashing the infinite horde of their voluble wills, they will send her into such a turmoil that she seems now to rise to meet the stars, only now to tread the lowest point of the abyss, until finally she is miserably devoured by its unholy depths. And if the sea seems calm by the break of day, By noon, you will see it become horrid and fearsome. The sea nourishes monsters, while man, like a new Proteus, breeds an immense flock of the foulest sea creatures, lascivious and impure desires, sensual and vile thoughts, idle pleasures, and 1,000 other horrendous and monstrous things that I will not describe to you now as I see the sun's fiery rays extinguished before me. Thus she ended her speech and led me with her to her happy abode.
Oh, the wise nymph made a worthy comparison. But even among so many faithless men and liars, certainly there could be one who is found faithful and true. But even among so many faithless men, I do not believe there ever was or ever will be one as unfaithful as Philomone.
They are all tainted with the same tar. Sister, for my part, I prefer to flee from them as I have always done, to follow my Dahlia. This is true joy. This is happiness. To live following in her path, then they can't hurt you with their perfidious desires and their deceits.
How it saddens me, Lucasta, that I did not see and understand this sooner.
You will realize it enough in time. And now you can follow this sweet life.
Oh, I want to follow your advice. I want to free myself from Philomone as soon as possible.
But come, let's rest ourselves a while by this fountain, for to tell you the truth, I am quite tired.
Let's not stop here, my Lucasta, for this is the very place where I must speak with Philomone.
And where shall we go?
To the fountain, underground, where I told Armilla she would find me again.
Well, let's go then, andiamo!
Si, cara Lucasta, andiamo!
Driven by hunger, fierce wolf emerges from the forest and runs quickly to where he believes he can better satisfy his most ravenous desires.
In just the same way, amorous hunger pushes me towards the sacred caves where my goddess resides. So I come to this wood, where Clorilli often comes alone in her solitude. Most deceitful Clorilli, who so detests my form, so detests my veneral and strong countenance. Ooh, Clorilli, I'm so fitting like a demigod. Most perfidious Clorilli, who is it that you disdain and flee from, huh? A bear? A tiger? A fierce basilisk who can kill you with a look? I, who am like a god in these woods, and could conquer you by force, choose instead to court you. And I had precious and welcome gifts to my entreaties, and yet you still disdain me. And now you refuse me. Wow, vain, ill-advised nymph. Why do I vainly follow these desires, if I can make advantage of what nature has given me? Why, the great Jove himself changed into a swan, and then to a bull, and then to Diana. So who could blame me if I, too, follow the example of that great, most powerful god? Is this not the way of great men, if Jove has already done the same? I will use force, Clorilli, in spite of yourself, and I will take you. As long as I can satisfy my own desires, what do I care if you are damaged, O prey of mine? I will go hide in these shrubs, waiting for my prey at the pass, a most rapacious hunter.
all your hatred and contempt. For if this lasts much longer, the poor wretch's life will be over. And are you so cruel that you will be able to look at him when he is dead, when you once loved him? Just remember now that the generous victor acquires greater glory by giving life and liberty to the conquered than one who is cruel and fierce and puts his captive into rough chains and kills him in the end. Your faithful lover surrenders himself to you and does not ask for his liberty, but only his life so that he may live forever as your faithful servant.
To make you happy, Armilla, I've promised to listen to him. And I will listen to him courteously. Now, is that not enough for you?
It is not that it is not enough, but I want you to listen to him as a lover, not as an enemy.
I am not an enemy, but even less am I a lover.
If you're not an enemy, then you're a lover.
A lover of myself and not of him.
If he lives within you, therefore you love him.
So in which part of me does he live, Armilla? I chase him from my heart, my memory erased him, and my thoughts flee from him as far as they can.
He lives there in spite of you, thanks to the heavens and to the stars. Tell me, do these beautiful eyes of yours, this golden hair, this beautiful face, and this pure breast, are they part of Clorilli or of another?
They are mine, and I feel them as mine.
And if Philemone lives only for these things, does he not then live in you?
Haven't you told me 1,000 times it was my eyes that wounded his heart?
I did say this, and I will say it again now more than ever.
Oh, he who wounds kills and does not give life.
Oh, nymph, how sly you are in hurting others. Now, don't you know that the wound from a poisoned dart can be soothed but never healed?
And is this deadly poison perhaps hidden in my gaze?
You did not have this poison. We had only just emerged from the beautiful Alcippie's womb, but only after the excellent master had tempered it and sprinkled it over you.
By grace, tell me who this master is and how he prepared this poison that I hid in my eyes.
This great master was love. It was he who took the whitest parts from the lovely mantle of the dawn and the darkest parts of the sky from the night. He robbed the stars of their celestial hue and put all these things together and refine his mixture over his bright, his burning fire, and placed it in Clorilli's eyes.
This is pure fairy tale.
You think these words of mine are fables, do you? Don't you know that it was this beautiful gaze that first mortally wounded Philemone? And it is this gaze that keeps him alive today, even if he lives infirm and weak.
And do you really believe, Armilla, that a gaze can have such power?
What do you mean, do you believe it? Don't you know what that great shepherd, who was born on the clear shores of the Cibetto and then sang so sweetly near the Po, once wrote about two bright eyes?
What did he write about them, Armilla?
Here's what he said.
Oh, beautiful life!
He said, oh, do you not realize that your rays allow you to renew a heart almost like a phoenix, and to heal the wounds that you have opened?
The tales of poets. Dreams and shadows.
When angry love punishes you one day for 1,000 offenses, he will send to your heart that sweet poison that sweetly kills.
He will not do it if I do not wish it.
You think he will not do it if you do not wish it? Believe that if you wish, but he will make you want this. Now stay, and I will fetch Philemone, for I promised him this. And meanwhile, I remind you to look happy and gentle in your expression, and to soften your anger.
Go ahead, for I will do what you command of me. This crazy woman believes that her well-contrived chatter will end my hatred for Philemone, but we will soon see how wrong she is. I would sooner kill myself with my own hands than become a lover again.
Come on now.
Oh my God.
No more waiting. Oh, beautiful and dear nymph! I have caught you!
I mean, alas, am I taken? Armilla, come back, my dearest companion.
There's no use screaming, you pitiless nymph!
Shepherds, alas, come quickly! Help!
Come with me to this cave, if you don't want me to drag you, you wicked nymph.
Oh, shepherds, come quickly! Help!
unless you want to feel the full strength of my blows.
Why would I leave her? No, Rusconi will never do such a crazy thing.
You won't leave her? We'll see about that.
No, let me go. Won't you, Rusconi? Just, follow me. You handsome satyr.
Ooh.
Be gone from here and retreat back into the forest, you boorish beast!
Oh, deceitful Clorilli!
Thank you, Shepherd, for your courteous help. Had you not been here. But what do I see? Is this not Foligno, my sweetest brother? Dearest brother, am I really seeing you, or do I just think I am? Am I dreaming, or am I awake? Is it the breeze, or is it the shade, or am I really seeing the true image of my Foligno? If it really is true that you are my brother, speak!
Yes, Clorilli, dearest sister, you see the real thing. Sono io. After my long travels, I've returned to my homeland once again.
Oh, Foligno, I'm indeed embracing you. I can see you, I can feel you, and I can hardly believe it. What cruel fate took you away from us, my Foligno? And why did you hide the cause of your departure from your old father and your sister?
As I will tell you, that wicked tyrant Love took me from you, but what of your father? Is he still living? How does he carry the great burden of his advanced age?
Our good father lives, but old age has made him weak and tired. There was a time when I thought he would abandon the world, returning to heaven, since your departure brought so much pain. What unexpected, sweet joy he will feel at your sweet, sweet return, which has been so long wished for and sighed for. But why do I delay? Why am I not running to my old father's now to announce the happiest of news?
Don't do it, Clorilli. Lest would cause such bitter pain at my sudden departure, cause excessive happiness at this sudden return. Too much joy sometimes kills.
I will therefore continue to delay. But tell me, meanwhile, by what I asked you.
Since you asked me to renew my pain in speaking to your dear sister, you will hear your brother's miserable and sorrowful story. I had not yet turned 17 when fate guided me to a place where, amongst many, many nymphs, there lived the most beautiful Talinda, like a bright star amongst a field of bright stars. In love, I rushed towards her light like a moth, and in that moment, I felt an invisible flame consume my heart. She recognized my fire. I knew that same flame flared within her as well. And together we were happy. With me, she passed many days admiring the cool murmurings of a stream and the sweetest harmony of lovely birds. But wicked fortune changed my serene days into gloomy nights, for Delinda's father decided to marry her to Philemone. What she didn't say or do to avoid that undesired wedding. In the end, we decided to leave our father's homes and go in search of a place that was happier and friendlier to our love. So we decided to meet the next night at this very fountain, where I believed she would be waiting for me, the love of my life. But when I arrived here, I did not see or hear anything but a terrible silence. Looking around, I caught sight of the tracks of a monstrous beast. I saw the clear waters of this fountain all bloody. And there, I saw a spear with a decorated tip and a white veil all spattered with blood. I picked up both and I looked around. Cruel moon, how could you lend light to such a sight? I saw stamped into the dark my beloved's name, and so I recognized this veil.
Oh, case, oh, how worthy of pity.
And thus I saw that all signs of my life itself were dead, too monstrous the prey of this terrible beast. I wanted to scream, but my throat closed up at the sound of pain. I wanted to kill myself, but I was kept alive by my desire to collect her beautiful bones in order to complete my pious duty. And only then end my life and my suffering. So I went looking around everywhere, 3 times in every corner of this forest, and I saw nothing Nothing but solitary horror. I came to believe that because her wedding day had arrived, that she was afraid to return to her old father's home and so left Tuscany. I decided immediately to follow her, led less by reason than by fate. And when I couldn't find her, I returned here to my unhappy homeland. And so I saw the rays of my beautiful sun extinguish Clorilli. And all my joy ended with it.
Wretched events. Tragic enough to draw laments from these stones themselves. Alas, how your grieving pains me. How willingly I would give my life, my blood itself, to give Delinda life. Your weeping pierces my heart. Let me wipe your tears with this veil.
Oh, wretched sight! Oh, what do I see?
Perhaps it would be better to return to our father's house.
Oh, disloyal Clorilli!
No, I don't think I should go after what I've just told you.
Oh, I suffer seeing this!
In the meantime, you can tell our father that you have news that I'm alive and you hope I'll return here shortly.
So when do you want him to see you?
Tomorrow, at the latest. Until then, keep me hidden, sisters.
Domenico, I cannot stop myself from embracing you.
Oh, miserable Flamone!
Oh, here comes a shepherd. Clorilli, farewell!
Sis Flamone, surely it is he. Against my wishes, I must wait for him to please our Lord.
Oh, you, treacherous and cruel, oh, impure and undeserving nymph. Tell me, are you she who dares to call the most faithful shepherd in the world unfaithful? You are that unchaste nymph who, in order to follow Diana, scorns all men. Yet the immoral desires that you are hiding beneath that cloak of honesty shall be revealed, despite your attempts. Tell me, is this why you flee from me? In order to pursue others? Am I disloyal? Am I called a traitor? Without love? Without faith? Oh, highest Jove, why do you hold back your burning arrows? Avenge this great deception and this fraud!
Oh, such sweet opening lines. Oh, what a gentle lover, I must say. This isn't what I expected.
Nor did I think I should need to speak to you in such a manner, traitress. And yet I must, against my will.
Are you mad, Philomone? What manner of speaking is this? Speak in a way I may also understand.
You feign not to understand, but you know most certainly. Tell me, do my own eyes not just see you clasp your new lover to your breast?
What does it matter to you? Or what should it matter?
What should it matter to me? To see another man possess my sweet reward? To see in the hands of another what by right should be mine? To see that she who is pitiless towards me, giving me only death, gives life to others. You ask why this matters?
Yes, I do ask. What reward are you speaking of that you see in others' possession and that should be yours? What life and what death are you jabbering on about?
You are that sweet reward that befits my long service. You, by the law of love, have already been mine for a long time, and you slay me when, robbing me, you give yourself to others.
If I had looked for or gratefully acknowledged your devotion, you would be right to ask for this reward. But I flee from it and I despise it. Serve another nymph, anyone who pleases you. As for life or death, I do not know what you mean by all this. I know that I do not desire nor wish for your death, nor do I care a fig for your life.
Oh, I know all too well. Even if there was once a time when it seemed to mean something to you.
If there was once a time, and I shall not deny it, when you were dear to me, it is also true that you gave me good reason to convert my love into hatred.
Oh, cruel one, what reason can you possibly give? Other than you turned your heart to a new love. You were ashamed to reveal it, as it would also reveal the ugly fault of your infidelity.
You know quite well that I hate you. You also know quite well that if I loved you once, it's because you deserved it then. No less discourteous than unfaithful, Philomone. I've suffered quite long enough here.
Clorilli?
Farewell.
Clorilli, alas, do not leave. Pardon this unfaithful tongue, which love and anger led astray, making me say what I did not mean. Please, listen a little while longer to these, the last words of my life. Here I am, then. Get on with it. Charming nymph, lift the beauteous beams of your eyes and behold once more in this strange and deathly visage my heart portrayed in all its torments. Here you will see at least a part of my suffering. Another part my faint voice will tell, if it does not fade to silence amidst my agony and grief. More than a year ago, you deprived this wretched soul of that good that you once bestowed on it as a gracious gift. Since that time, I shall not tell you what has been my state. But this will tell you something of how I feel. My breast has become a new inferno, home to the greatest of torments. Here, a great furnace sparks with real flames, and here I feel the searing cold of bitter frost. And so many other torments that even to speak of them, let alone to suffer them, brings unbearable pain. And here, amidst all these woes, sits your lovely image as queen, lovely as Persephone on her frozen throne.
You would place me in hell, Philomone. Take me out of there. Such a dark and shadowy chamber is not to my liking.
I cannot take you out there, but you, with your eyes, can make this same chamber tranquil and bright.
As powerful as you think.
Do I not know well from my own suffering that those two eyes, two suns rather, have the power to light up chasms and nights? You know this quite well yourself, but you prefer to keep the power of their rays for other places.
Even if my eyes did have such value, do not think that I would wish to brighten your nights. Rather, if I ever see you, I will keep them closed or turn them elsewhere.
You mean to deprive me of those two lovely rays which can brighten my deep shade of glory, leaving me to live on in eternal horror and grief. Then I will close them, never to open them again.
Do not think your speeches will change my mind and desire. Peace be with you. I'm leaving.
Is this how you leave me in peace? Do you leave me thus, cruel one, the moment of my death? Oh, beautiful Clorilli. You could have shown yourself to be kind, at least to my death. You could have said, die, Philomone! But it is not enough for you, cruel one, for me to shed blood and die, unless my wretched soul also passes into the next life miserably. But you will not fully enjoy my death, which you showed yourself to have so longed for. Your delight at my cruel death will be tempered by the pain that you will feel at the death of your beautiful and beloved lover. With these very hands, I will open up his breast and pierce his heart with my arrow. What are you ranting about, Philomone? What are you thinking? While you were in life with all your power, you were always trying to make her happy. Why would you want to make her unhappy at the moment of your death? Let her fortunate lover live on, and let Philomone die without vendetta. And thus, it pleases me to go amongst the infernal shadows. Farewell, woods. Farewell, hills. I go to die!
Massachusetts School of the Arts. Ellie New is also here with us. You might want to comment during the discussion, which will follow soon. And I also need to give credit to Rory Curtin. Ms. Rory Curtin, who's not here tonight, but she was a wonderful ballinda, and she was a master's student. So one of the pleasures of doing this production was really to bring people together from all sectors of NYU and bring out their very best. I also need to acknowledge Sinead Butler, who is with us tonight, who is a great costumes artist, and well, our makeup artist. So really it's a fantastic team to work with. Grandissima squadra, bravissima squadra. I know it's getting late, so let's move on quickly to the ongoing life of Clorilli, really maybe at the beginning of this story of producing this extraordinary play. And I'd like to invite Ms. Anna Wainwright, the translator of the script, who will introduce a bit more about what's to come. So please, Anna.
Hello, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me tonight. And I just wanted to say thank you to Virginia for her extraordinary intellectual generosity in taking me on in this project when I was a second-year graduate student, and allowing me to be involved in this project from the beginning, and to Eric for this marvelous adaptation of it that has just been, as you can tell, such a spectacular experience for everyone. And I also wanted to say thank you to the actors, who are remarkable. So I am now at the University of New Hampshire after getting my PhD here, and I am in a department that is of classics, humanities, and Italian studies, so an interdisciplinary department, which every year puts on a play. So last year we put on Pseudolus, actually, and this year we're putting on Clorilli. So it will be its North American debut, and you're all welcome to come. There'll be performances on May 6th and May 7th. And we'll be doing it a little bit differently, of course, because we, although we are in a green state, we do not have a green space on campus. So it'll be in a room a bit larger than this, but still auditorium-like. So we're bringing the green space in. But the students are very excited, very thrilled. And it'll be a very interesting production, I think. I wanted to show you a bit of the cast and some stills. So here's our Clorilli. And we're going to need to get her a spear. And I've already talked with Eric about it here, so there's some very good things at Home Depot. Here is our Filemone, and I think that I was thinking about the Filemone you saw tonight when I cast him, because he's got a similar drama thing happening, and he's really enjoying it. We also have some faculty involved. This is Professor Harriet Furtick, who will be playing the role of Elfesibeo. She's an assistant professor of classics, and she is not 19, but she is about 32, so we're going to need to get her some makeup, too. This is our very annoyed Armilla, who is fantastic. She's a senior and a classics major, and her mother is a New Hampshire state rep, and also a Renaissance Fair reenactor. So she does lots of fabulous costumes. So we have some really spectacular costumes. This is Filemone and Corribante. I have encouraged them to not use their iPhones to read the script, but they are not listening to me yet. And so this is them. We have a male Corribante, but as you can tell, they're getting really into it. Here is Armilla, again on the iPhone, Clorilli and Armilla, and finally Rachel, who is actually not in the play. She'll be sort of on stage, probably doing some dancing, but she is a master's student in sports management, but wanted to be involved. So it'll be a really lovely, I think, production, and the students are very excited. A lot of them are actually not Italian majors, but classics majors, and they have been really thrilled to see all the different resonances between Renaissance theater and classics. They kind of thought it just ended after. So it's always exciting to get them to know that too. But what we've been talking, Eric and I have really been talking about how this is, this will be the second production in a year after 500 years, and we'd really like to keep that momentum going because it is a rich play, it's a new play, it's exciting, and as you can tell, there's really lots of different things to do with it. So the one thing that we'll be doing that is a little bit different, but Eric will be consulting on it, is we're actually bringing in the music department. So we have about 8 musicians, classical guitarists, vocalists, and a trombone player, who will be doing all sorts of stuff, Monteverdi, and they also, I haven't actually even mentioned this to Virginia, but they'll be doing a madrigal of Bernardi's that was put to music by Caccini. So it will be really fantastic. We'll do a video of it, but you really are welcome. New Hampshire is beautiful. So please feel free to come up if you'd like, but we are just going to keep trying to get these done. So thank you so much to Eric, thank you so much to Virginia, thank you to Suzanne Wofford, who I took pastoral with my second year, and yes, so thank you so much.
And thanks to all of you once more. Can we stay a bit longer?
The
floor is open.
A few questions, and maybe call the actors back if they want.
Yes, yeah.
Virginia and Anna.
Please, Virginia, Anna,
if you want to
on stage. We have microphones. And Jeremy, Andrew, Aranda, Roland, you're welcome to come join us on stage for question and answer. I'll go in touch. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Yes, come on. Don't be shy. You've got a piano bench.
He brought himself. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sit down now and throw that high energy. No. You stay moving. Oh, what was that?
High table.
Yes. Yeah, please, Ronnie. Sure.
I have a question about tone. This was so delightful and delicious.
Speak in the microphone, ma'am.
And
thank you.
hi, my name is Ronnie
Scharfman. I'm Professor Emerita of French at Purchase College, where I had the pleasure of working with Eric Nicholson. My question is about tone and how much fun you all had doing this, how delightful it is. And I'm wondering if this was something you came to collaboratively, if it was a directorial concept, or if you think that the play actually is way back then already parodying pastoral and has the irony built into it.
Yes. Well, as you heard Andrew saying very well in the documentary, the heightened language and the rarefied world, which it was of pastoral, remember, it's aimed usually at an elite audience, very educated. They know Ovid probably backwards and forwards, better than Ovid scholars might today. So to make that more accessible for the 21st century, we found it useful, I think, working together, and that was something we talked about, this research, in getting practice and research together by doing it, that to communicate some of these more rarefied ideas of pastoral, the comical vein, the irony that you spotted, yes, Ronnie, helped, I believe, to puncture maybe some of the pretension possibly that could be there in the script, and to translate that into performance, to emphasize, as you say, some of the elements of parody that are there. And though I want to say also, I believe that Bernardi, as a woman playwright, is perceiving, that's part of the agenda here, the pretensions of the genre, and how male violence, for example, interestingly enough, is expressed by, if anything more, Philemone at the end. Where is he to save his girlfriend? And he has this revenge, kind of agenda for her as well. And that made us, of course, contemplate this satyr as more of a boaster, right? And we did want to experiment. Of course, that was perhaps one of the most unauthentic move, to have a woman playing the satyr, who also, if you notice, was Elia, the Bernardi playwright, playing that role. So it was a mix, I'd say, just to conclude the response, of perceiving something in the script where Bernardi's already deconstructing somewhat these maneuvers. It's, instead of the melodramatic, male saving the damsel in distress, it is the brother, not, the lover in the original script, for example. And some of what you heard her in that scene between Licasta and Clorilli about male deception and fraud, that kind of skepticism. So we wanted to tease that out. That was there, and to make it also, accessible for the actors and the audience today. So there's a bridge.
I might say something as well. I think pastoral it's a strange genre. I mean, this is described as a tragicomedia, and it is strangely eclectic. Like in Tasso's Aminta, some of the battute between Tirsi and Daphne are very funny, and in Guarini's Pastor Fido you have some just like out and out farcical elements and so on. So it is a strange and eclectic mixture of high lyricism and comedy, and certainly something like the scene where she has a character who's transparently Marfisa d'Este sitting on the seashore, developing this hyperbolic parallel between, the horrors of male infidelity and the sea in a storm and so on. There's clearly, it's not betraying it to play it for laughs, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I would. Is this on? Yeah. I would say also she is so self-conscious in the play. She so self-consciously references other elements of pastoral, especially with her sort of name dropping of Tasso, and we saw part of that when talking about the poet, and that's his lyric. But she also makes specific references to Aminta. In it as I was worried, but then I remembered what Aminta did, and there's this very intense self-referential element that I think really was certainly aimed at making the audience feel sort of insidery as well. So I think that's an important part.
I pass the microphone in a second. And I keep the microphone because my question is for you. The translation is beautiful. The language you use is very poetic in itself. And I was wondering whether when you were translating this work, you had in mind any English poet, maybe contemporary of the author or not. If you had any poetic model, English poetic model in mind that you tried to model your translation on. And I would ask a parallel question also to Virginia in her translation of The Worth of Women, these two works that are themselves, a few years apart, proto-feminist as we define them, as you define them, both. And what was your source of inspiration for your translation of it? And then maybe the same thing for the actors. What was it like to use this language? Did you feel it like yours? Was it distant? Was it something you could relate to? Were you ever tempted to change words with words that you use more currently or not?
Thank you. I would say that I intentionally tried not to imitate any particular English language poet or playwright. I also did a lot of reading of other translations of pastorals, both male authored and female authored, to see. But what I did want, and what I was trying, and I spoke quite a lot with Virginia about this, who was very hands-on, and Eric also before the adaptation, what I wanted to try and do was make it not painfully stilted and able to really read it and understand it while maintaining that elevated thing. And often while I was translating it, I wanted to cry because I just felt like it wouldn't really do that. So it was really quite impressive, I think, to see how unstilted it can become in actors' mouths. And there's some things I would like that I don't care a fig for it that we heard. That was Virginia. And Eric added the Cinque Terre, which made everything also quite much more accessible. So I think, making it accessible while also maintaining the heightened element that is there. You can't make it completely anachronistic, but it's not Shakespeare. And the language was not equivalent. So I think that was very important to me.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, Moderata Ponte was a very different experience because she's writing in prose, not in verse, and she's not using this extremely kind of codified Petrarchan language. And my first reaction when I read her dialogue was it just read as extraordinarily fresh and colloquial, and it kind of jumped off the page. And I did my PhD dissertation on Italian dialogue, Renaissance dialogues. I've read a lot of dialogues, and I have to tell you that is in a tiny minority in terms of actually sounding like speech, and that it's very witty, and so it was a breeze to translate, really.
The actors, please,
Yeah. I think that, like, the translation and also just the way it was like written generally, as you were saying, it is in prose, which I studied a lot of like verse and like Shakespearean verse, and I trained in that, so it was refreshing to have something that was like truthfully just like made sense. Like, especially the discussions I think with Armila and Clorilli, those were some of the ones where I was like, oh, like the table work was fine. Like, I feel completely comfortable to go on stage and do this, because it just, that's how you talk to your friends. That's how you talk to the people you know. It's not like weird.
No, I just wanted to ask, hi, thank you so much. You were all very good. It was very enjoyable. Did the music and the choreography, was that in her translations, or did you guys put that in yourselves to add to the music and the choreography, the dancing?
I think we put that in, if I'm not. I'm just making sure it didn't come to me. We had separate music rehearsals. We decided to add kind of a dance at the end and to add music in. I think the song that was in the documentary is a 20th century piece.
Yeah, we were incredibly lucky actually in this production, in that on my way over to Florence at one point I ran into Emily Wilbourn, who appeared in the documentary, at the airport, and discovered that she's a great expert on late Renaissance music. She happened to be at Velleitati that year in Florence, so we kind of roped her into the team. And she and Lisa Sampson, who's a very great expert on like Renaissance theatre and staging and so on, and has read everything there is to read on contemporary stagings of pastoral, had some very interesting thought about there is nothing in the manuscript that actually marks out, here you get a song, but there are moments when you get a kind of strophic music rather than blank verse. And, I think particularly since Bernardi did compose for music and she was a performer herself, it does seem that it's not too much of a conjectural leap to think that it's likely that there were kind of musical moments here. And also there seems some documentation that, breaks for dances, were quite a common feature of pastoral drama. So it was a bit of invention and a bit of kind of historical research.
I think she'd like that in her stuff. She would like that.
I think so. I was very pleased to hear that Anna's production is actually staging this very beautiful madrigal by Caccini, whose lyrics are by Bernardi, it seems like. Maybe you want to.
Oh yeah, no, I would just say it's been very exciting to speak with these vocalists who are doing this, and I think it's going to be quite lovely to interject it. But also, as Virginia mentioned in the biographical portion of the evening, she really was herself a gifted musician, and in her life, her pre-Florence life, and her life at the Ferrara court with her husband, she's really praised for that in letters by a variety of people. So I think it's very appropriate to have musical elements.
Period. I think we wanted to do that same one with Caccini, but we didn't get to that. And also in the text, Rory Curtin, who couldn't be here tonight, played Dalinda. There's an incantatory moment when she's speaking to the "Oh fountain, oh fontana, fontana," and it has a musical rhythm to it, and we tried to impart that. Yeah, so you'll be doing that as well, because as you saw, the fountain is the central stage element, and it became incorporated into the musical a score, practically, you could say, of the script and the show.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you so much for the performance and speech tonight. I really liked how Clorilli is nonchalant and composed towards Philemon. Since we haven't seen the entire play, so I'm wondering if this is already encoded in the script, or is this a modern interpretation of the play?
That's interesting, because I think we were talking about that yesterday a little bit. We kind of
I think just like through table work and like working through the script, we've kind of gleaned that, from what I've interpreted, I might be wrong, but Leonora swapped gender roles almost with the two of us, I would say. That I kind of presented the more stereotypical, like masculine, strong self, and I think Philemone was definitely a little bit more effeminate in his emotions, and I liked that we kind of played with that and went as far as we could with it. Yeah, I think it's in the script. Maybe we may have gone a little far with it, but I like it. Do you want to?
I think specifically how headstrong she is and how put together she is in the script. But I think to the extent that we used that contrast between her sarcasm and my emotional craziness, that was thank you. That was created through performing it, and that wasn't clear from the first rehearsal. That was something that was created by the time we did the production.
Did I miss it, or will the play be published?
Did I do? Oh yes, yes, it will. Soon we will be. In the fullness of time, it will be published. Yes, and with the other voice series, and I think actually quite soon. We're almost at the end of the process. Sorry. A bilingual facing page translation. So, which yes, so you'll have the original beautifully edited script, and then, and I say that because I didn't edit it, and then the translation on the facing page with notes and a critical introduction by Virginia and Lisa. Mm-hmm.
I'm also quite keen on encouraging Eric to publish his theatrical abridgment of it, because it's very actable, and I think, you know, as you can tell from Anna's talk at the end about her performance she's putting on in New Hampshire, it has got scope, I think, certainly for other performances and also other interpretations. It would be fascinating to see how the New Hampshire version turns out.
Yeah. And if I can put a little promotion here, to encourage you, I've a sneak preview. Virginia has finished the introduction, and it's outstanding, no surprise, knowing your work, Virginia. But I encourage you to obtain that volume when it comes out, of course. So you can look forward to it. Yeah. Suzanne. Yeah.
So how much shorter is your adaptation from the original play?
I'd say we did about 2/3. I mean, it's a third shorter, to 40%, maybe even shorter. Yeah, because I think full text would be running on 3 hours or so, over 3,000 lines, of which it's a mix. I mean, it's a mix of, there is some verse as well as prose, but yeah, we probably got it down to what was an hour and 40 minutes or so now. Yeah, so and there are differences, and yeah, I don't know if we're going to publish the Andiamo, Anna, if we do one. But that was, as you heard, a running gag for the actors. Yeah. Exactly, yeah. So, yes. So, Laura? Please, sir. Yes, it's on YouTube. The entire, you can find on YouTube. It's still there. Yeah. Clorilli, what is it? I'll the hashtag.
It comes up if you just say Clorilli.
Just Clorilli. That's probably Bernardi.
It
might have La Pietra on it, or NYU Clorilli. Probably is enough. There aren't too many other competitors. You'll get New Hampshire Clorilli. Yeah, so yeah. But right now you can see it on YouTube. So I invite you to watch. And in fact, if you're, I won't give away the ending. Do you want to know the ending? No. But you can imagine, right, already what happens. Yeah, but the complete version is available, yeah, through YouTube. Laura, yeah.
Yes, this is just a comment that about languages. When we did the Worth of Women, and we were talking, we are touring, and also in Italy hasn't really been done. So sometimes I have this crazy idea, let's do it also in Italian. But I have to say, even, I'm Italian, so I understand the language, but there is something in the translation that is like, it makes it easier to act and to communicate than the language of Moderata when you read the book. Maybe because we didn't adapt it, the original, but there is something in, I don't know, maybe because we are less used to that language, but I have to say that to me, your translation helped a lot. Also the adaptation on stage.
Yeah, I
so
think one thing I always do when I translate, I tend to privilege making texts comprehensible because I just kind of feel that it's not serving anyone if you don't. And since, you know, Italian tends to have more complex syntax, I feel English just, you have to simplify the syntax somewhat to make it sound like natural English. So I think that's probably one reason why it's more actable, that it is simplified, you know, syntactically.
So the question also is, did you do it the same? Do you feel that you simplified a little bit in translating?
Absolutely. Oh yeah, and certainly syntactically, yes. And this. Yes, absolutely, yes, and certainly syntactically. And then we simplified again as well, and this is why I do also think Eric should do the theatrical adaptation edition, because you'll be able to see the differences as well between what we've done in the critical edition, which is a little bit more faithful to the text. Although, yes, absolutely simplified, but then Eric and I worked together, and Eric did a beautiful job making it even more delightful for coming out of the actors' mouths. So there are some things that will be a little bit more academic in the critical edition than in the theatrical text that we have worked with and you saw.
Just one anecdote also, which the actors, of course, appreciated too, and a difference. We were using recompense, which is closer to the original and closer to 16th century locution, a Shakespearean term, of course, in the script. And I think you'd even memorized that, both Jeremy and Miranda. And then I have to credit, of course, Virginia, who came to a late rehearsal and said, well, I don't know about that recompense. Our modern audience is really going to understand that. And in fact, I said, thank you, because we had debated this. In fact, I think in our conversations on, should we make it reward and modernize it? And Virginia said, absolutely. And I think you were very grateful when we got to that. And that got, because it is a key word. They use it 4 times in that scene. And of course, the sexual politics are so loaded with that moment, right? And it's a key hinge, you could say. So that's an example that we'll definitely preserve if we do it. Reward, as I think our theatrical word that makes it accessible, you know, to the 21st century, and picks up what you're saying, Laura, because, you know, changing it and the evolving language that makes it a more theatrical. Yeah, and I'm using Italian, utilizzabile, usable, right? Kind of term. It's a wonderful example of that process too, and it's a very exciting one too, because it's what you discover in rehearsal, and you know, with the consciousness of this has to go out to an audience, you know, and also be embraced by both the actors and the spectators and listeners.
I'll just say I'd like to thank the actors and Eric as well, because it was delightful to watch the translation on stage, see what worked, see what didn't work. It was pretty thrilling to have it be a living object, especially since we hadn't published it yet, so that was really helpful. Mm-hmm.
Please, our actors.
Thank you very much.
She's too modest, but please, Virginia, take a bow.
Yes.